Hi there everybody, this is Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. Now today's video is about sight reading. So I'm just going to offer some advice on sight reading. So I've taught a ton of students and a lot of them were, beginner all the way to advanced, and they did a lot of auditions. A lot of times sight reading is a big part of auditions. So this information today will be applicable for your ability to sight read for auditions, but even if it's not sight reading and you just want to get better at just, reading music, the first time that you see it, this video will still apply to you. Now, over the years, I've developed a very simple system for being able to sight read in a stressful situation like an audition, or how to practice sight reading when you're at home so you can just be better at it, which of course is applicable to what you would do in an audition as well. So my system is very, very simple. It's just a 3-step process. Now, I could really get into the weeds on this one and get really detailed, but I'm not. As usual, I'm going to try to distill everything down to just the 3 basic steps, and hopefully I'll answer the most important questions so I can be really helpful for you guys. So the simple system that I've developed is a 3-step system. The first 2 steps are actually questions. The 3rd step is an action. So the first step is asking yourself the question, what is in your left hand? The 2nd step is, what is in my foot? The 3rd is an action where you basically play silently in your left hand the first 2 or 3 measures, maybe 4 measures depending on how big the measures are. So the first 4 measures, you play them silent in your left hand with your foot, and you do that as many times as you possibly can before you are told by the audition committee to start. So without further ado, let's just go into a little bit more detail on each step. Okay, so the first step is asking yourself the question, what is in my hand? Now, this is the most complicated one of all the steps by a long shot, and it does require some practice on your part and some knowledge. So what you want to do is when you look at the music, you will see a key signature and a time signature. So what you want to do is look at the key signature and see what is in it. So for this example, it's in the key of G, which means it has 1 sharp. Okay, so you want to ask yourself, well, what do I do with my left hand now that I know I have 1 sharp? Okay, well, that's pretty simple, but what if you're not terribly good at key signatures and you want to be better at them? Okay, so there's a couple things that you can do that you can practice at home to be better at your key signatures. So number 1 is that you can get cue cards. Now, in an audition situation in particular, you're probably not going to have more than 3 or 4 sharps or 3 or 4 flats. Unless it's a really advanced audition or it's a professional audition or something like that, you probably won't see more than 3 or 4 sharps or 3 or 4 flats. So get your cue cards out, write the key signatures out, and then just go through the key signatures. So you'll see a cue card that says, oh, 2 sharps. Then ask yourself, oh, what does that mean? So those sharps are F sharp, C sharp. What does that do to my left hand? What does that do to my fingers? Okay, next one. Oh, 3 sharps. Oh, I'm in the key of A major. I have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. Well, what does that do to my left hand? Okay, then you get another cue card and it's 1 flat. Okay, well, I'm in a key of F major. What does that do to my hand? Okay, so just go through the key signatures and you'll get much better at it in terms of seeing the flats or sharps and then knowing what to do with your left hand. So the second thing that you can do is just practice scales. So get a simple scale book, right? And then find all the scales in your scale book that have 3 or 4 sharps or 3 or 4 flats, and then just play through the scales and notice what is in your left hand when you're playing the scales. And then eventually, when you see these key signatures and you play the notes that are right in front of you, you'll start to train your ear as well. So your ear will anticipate what your fingers need to do when you're playing in that key signature. Okay, so now I want to mention a kind of point of philosophy or frame of mind that perhaps, depending on the level that you're at, you may not be thinking about the violin in such a way where it is helpful to you. So I just want to pose a way of thinking to you that might help you learn a little bit faster and then kind of connect the dots a little bit better. Okay, so when you have a key signature, let's say you have multiple sharps or you have multiple flats, you want to think about the fact that you have more sharps as it's more fingers that you have to raise, right? Because a sharp is raising the pitch, it's going up, right? When you see flats, that means that you're lowering the pitch, so you're lowering your fingers. So the more sharps that you see, the more raised fingers that you'll have. The more flats that you see, the more lowered fingers that you'll have. So you want to consider the G major scale as your baseline, I guess you could say. It's like neutral ground. The G major scale is probably the easiest scale on the violin. It has one sharp, and your finger pattern is probably the most consistently common finger pattern that you'll see in most of your music. So you want to look at the G major scale and look at your finger pattern, and then anything that's above that or below that, you use that as your baseline. So for example, when you look at the G major scale, hopefully the camera will pick this up all right. So when you play your notes, so that's a high 2. It's a high 2 because it's touching your third finger and it's not touching your first finger. So D string, right? Again, you have a high second finger because it's not next to your first finger, it's next to your third finger. A string, you have a low second finger, right? Because it's next to your first finger and it's not next to your third finger. Then on the E, right, you have a low second finger because it's touching your first finger. So you have a high second finger on your lower 2 strings, and you have a lower second finger on your upper 2 strings, okay? So that's kind of your baseline. So now, when you see more sharps, well, then your second or third finger is going to be raised, right? So you just have to notice, oh, I've got an additional sharp. That means that some of my fingers are going to be the raised. So instead of a low second finger, it might be a high second finger. Instead of a natural position third finger, now it's going to be a raised third finger. Same with flats. Instead of a high second finger on the lower 2 strings, you might have to lower it and it'll touch the first finger. So if you think this way, if you get very acclimated to the G major scale and you understand the pattern of your fingers, then when you're practicing your cue cards or you're practicing your scales, you use that as a baseline. So you'll know that, oh, I'm going to be raising more fingers the more sharps I have, and I'll be lowering more fingers the more flats I have. Okay, so the second question you ask yourself is, what's in my foot? Okay, and this is a lot easier, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna look at the time signature, okay? And if you look at our example here, you'll see that we're in 3/4. Now, the number that you're interested in the time signature is the bottom number. And in this instance, it's a 4. Now, if there was a C there, that would mean that we're in common time, which would mean 4/4, okay? Now, what if we had a 2 there, okay? It could be like 3/2, 4/2, 2/2, something like that. So, but you just want to look at that bottom number. And generally, that bottom number is going to be a 2 or a 4. So, if you see an 8 in that bottom number, then you're going to have an 8th note in your foot. That's your beat, okay? If you see a 4 in that bottom number, then you're going to have a quarter note in your foot. That's your beat. If you see a 2 as a bottom number, then you're going to have a half note in your foot. That's your beat. So all you have to do is just you just look at that time signature, so then you'll immediately know, is it a half note, is it a quarter note, or is it an 8th note that I have in my foot? Okay, now step 3 is really important, okay? And this is especially going to help you in an audition situation. So what you do is you put that beat in your foot, not too fast, okay? Let's say, like in our example, it's a 4, so it's a quarter note, right? So you've got that quarter note in your foot. Now you're going to get your violin and you're going to finger the rhythm that you see in the music, the little excerpts that's been put in front of you, and you're going to play with your foot. And what you're going to do is, let's say the excerpt's like, I don't know, 10 measures long or 8 measures long. You're going to play like the first 4 measures over and over and over again with your foot, with your left hand, silently playing the notes in the measures, okay? And you're going to do that as many times as you can until they force you to start. Now, the reason for this is because you want your sight reading to be organized, okay? That is the name of the game. So the number one thing that kills everybody inside, and I've been on many audition committees, and I can tell you, and I've done a lot of sight reading myself in auditions, I can tell you, what will kill you in an audition, in particular in a high stress situation, is not being organized. So your foot is your organization. As long as you have your foot going, right, whether it's that eighth note, quarter note, or half note, as long as you have that beat going, okay, and you match that up with your left hand while you're playing or while you're practicing it before they tell you to start, you are absolutely 100% guaranteed to hit more notes and more rhythms correctly. But if you do not have that foot tapping or that big toe tapping in your shoe or whatever, then you're going to be disorganized, and then you're going to flail. Then all of a sudden your notes are going to go out the window because you know your rhythm's wrong, and then you'll fight to get the rhythm right, and then you'll miss half the notes, right? I've been there, I know. So your saving grace, I'm telling you, is organization. Your foot is going to give you that organization. Okay, one thing that I should mention is that in your music, you're going to have a lot of markings. You're going to have slurs, ties, dynamics, articulation markings. You're going to have, tempo markings. You're going to have a whole bunch of markings, okay? They're not nearly as important as the notes and the rhythm. That's your number one thing. So don't get caught up in the ties and the slurs and the speed. You want to make sure that you're playing at a very comfortable speed, and you ignore all of those markings unless it's incredibly convenient for you to not. So if you're able to play the sight reading pretty accurately, then by all means, put in as many slurs and ties as you possibly can, put as many dynamics as you possibly can, make the notes as pretty as you possibly can. These are all good things, but your priority is just to really focus on keeping that foot going and making sure that your left hand is matching with whether you have that half note, quarter note, or eighth note in your foot. So I'll sum everything up really quickly. Oh, and before I do that, don't forget to like and then subscribe and hit that alert bell on the video. I'm making a lot of videos these days, so if you like the content, then just hit that alert bell. You'll always be notified, and it looks cool. Anyway, so just to summarize, right? 3 steps. 2 of them are questions, 1 of them is action. Number 1, look at that key signature. Ask yourself, what is in my hand? Number 2, you look at the time signature, what's in my foot? Number 3, and that only takes about, 10 seconds, right? Not even that, 5 seconds. And then right after that, now you're going to put that, whatever that is in your foot, and you're going to silently play those notes and play the first 4 measures over and over and over again until they force you to start. Now, in a typical audition situation, they'll give you 30 seconds, 20 to 35 seconds or something like that to look at the music. Use up every second. Use up every second. Don't, because time slows down in an audition, so you're going to feel compelled to begin. Don't do it. Use up every second that they give you. And that's the best thing that you can possibly do. Now, if it says vivace or presto or allegro or whatever, don't feel compelled to play it fast. Play it at a very comfortable speed. If they want you to play it faster, you know what they're going to do? They're going to say, oh, well, that was fine, but I need you to play it at this tempo. And what are they going to do? They're going to sing it, and then they're going to snap a beat while they sing it, and they're going to give you another shot at it. Awesome. Now you get a second try, and they just told you what it sounds like, right? Total cheat, right? So make sure you take up all the time that you can, and don't feel pressured to play too fast. So that's about it. I hope the video was helpful. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section. I usually answer most of the questions. And don't forget, here at Kennedy Violins, we're all players and teachers. We're all here to help you. So feel free to call us up, email us anytime. We're always happy to be of assistance. And with that, I hope you have a great day.